Maple Creek was a quiet town. Too quiet. Lawns were perfectly green. Mailboxes stood in neat little rows. Kids rode their bikes down empty streets, and the biggest news was when the ice cream truck ran out of strawberry swirl. But there was one story they didn't like to talk about. The house at the end of Whisper Lane. It stood on a hill, dark and lonely, its windows like vacant eyes, paint peeled from the walls. The yard was a jungle of weeds and thorns. The legend was a favorite for the sleepovers and campfires. Years ago, the Miller family lived there. One morning, they were just gone. Their car was still in the driveway. Clothes in the closets, food in the pantry, and upstairs a wooden baby crib, its sides covered in deep, desperate scratch marks. Armand didn't believe in ghost stories. He had just moved to Maple Creek. The legend of the Miller house, just a silly tale, he said. His friends warned him about strange sounds and shadows moving behind the dirty windows. But Armand just laughed. He was going to prove them all wrong. One night he crept out and walked towards Whisper Lane. He stood before the house, heart pounding. Was he really doing this? Yes, he had to. The back door was unlocked. Of course it was. It creaked open with a long, slow groan, like a monster waking from a deep sleep. Armand winced, hoping no one heard. He pointed his flashlight inside. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a kitchen frozen in time. A thick layer of dust covered everything, like a blanket of grey snow. Armand stepped inside, the floorboards groaning under his weight. He was in. There was no turning back now. He moved slowly, his flashlight beam dancing across the walls. "See," he whispered to the camera. "No ghosts, no monsters, just dust." But even as he said it, a chill crawled up his spine. Every little sound made him jump. The howl of the wind outside sounded like a sad, lonely cry. He pointed his flashlight toward the main staircase. That was where the real mystery was. He placed his foot on the first step. It creaked loudly. The third door was slightly ajar. The nursery. Armand knew it instantly. The flashlight beam swept across the room and landed on it. The crib, just like in the stories. And that's when he heard it. A soft, rhythmic sound. Someone was breathing. The sound was faint at first. It was a slow, raspy sound, like someone was struggling for air. Armand froze, his hand clamped over his mouth to stifle his own breath. He clicked off his flashlight, plunging the room into near total darkness. He stood perfectly still, listening. The breathing continued, steady and slow. It was coming from inside the room. Was someone else in the house, a squatter, another kid playing a prank? He strained his eyes, trying to see through the gloom. The moonlight, filtering through the grimy window, cast long, creepy shadows across the floor. The breathing seemed to get a little louder. It was definitely coming from the corner where the crib was. Sweat trickled down Armand's forehead. His brave plan didn't seem so smart anymore. He slowly raised his phone, the screen casting a faint glow on his terrified face. He was still recording. Maybe the camera could see something he couldn't. He pointed it toward the crib and slowly turned his flashlight back on. The sudden beam of light made the shadows dance wildly. The crib was empty, its wooden bars like the ribs of a skeleton, but the scratches were there just as the legend described. Deep gouges in the wood, as if a trapped animal had tried to claw its way out. The breathing sound grew louder, closer. It sounded like it was right next to his ear now. He took a shaky step closer to the crib, his flashlight beam trembling. He had to see, he had to know what was making that noise. He leaned over the edge, shining the light inside. Nothing, just a dusty, stained mattress. He let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. It was just the wind. It had to be. He laughed, a nervous, shaky sound that died in his throat, because that's when it happened. The crib moved. It rocked back and forth on its own, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Creak, croak, creak, croak. The sound mixed with the horrible wet breathing, filling the small room with a symphony of terror. Armand stumbled backward, his eyes wide with fear. This wasn't a prank, this wasn't the wind, this was real. He turned to run, to get out of this horrible room, out of this terrifying house. But as he scrambled for the doorway, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silent house. He grabbed the old brass doorknob, twisting and pulling with all his might. It wouldn't budge, it was locked, trapped. The breathing was all around him now, cold and menacing. The crib rocked violently in the darkness behind him. He was trapped inside the breathing room. Panic seized him. Aman banged on the thick wooden door, screaming for help, but the silence swallowed his voice. The only answer was the relentless rocking of the crib and the awful, raspy breathing from the shadows. His flashlight died, leaving only the pale moonlight and the dim glow of his phone. He spun, phone camera recording as the breathing stopped. For one terrifying second, there was silence. Even the crib was still. Then, a whisper colder than a winter grave slithered from the darkness behind him. "Where's the baby?" It wasn't a question, it was a demand. Aman screamed, dropping his phone as the whisper grew angrier. The last thing he saw was a shadow rising from the empty crib. The next morning, Maple Creek was peaceful, but Aman never came home. In the nursery, police found only his phone. There were frantic scratches on the inside of the door. The video showed the crib rocking by itself, and Aman's final scream. Underneath it all, a cold whisper echoed, "Where's the baby?" The house was quiet now, waiting.